Mark the Hilula here, Yud Daled Shvat of Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, Zecher Tzadik Debracha, or Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah Rishon, because there were great rabbis of this name, of past, present, and I'm sure in the future they're definitely also. He was actually born in the year 1860, and he passed away in 1912. He was about 52 years of age, and the 14th of Shvat over here marks the great rabbi's Hilula over here. Many people are commemorating this specific day of the great Chacham, and much has actually been said within regards to them, within regards to the great rabbi, and I strongly recommend everyone to learn more about the great Chachamim of yesteryear that we've actually recorded many videos about over here inside this series. So the 14th of Shvat is his Hilula. Let's explore a few of the highlights within regards to the great rabbi's life over here. So the first thing to point out, there's a lot that we can point out over here within regards to the Chacham. He was a great Kabbalist. He was a Moroccon and one of the great rabbis of Morocco. Benohat's ish Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah. What's interesting was he was the younger son of Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, who was very, very great rabbi of his time. Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah was a rabbi of Tefilalat in Morocco. He was a posek, he was a Mekubal, he was a author, he was a darshan, he was a payatan, and he happened to have been himself the grandfather of the famous Baba Sali, and really just the greatness within regards to that. And going back to Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah Harishon, he was known as a tzaddik and a great rabbi with let's say, a Ba'al Ruach Kodesh, interesting enough. So much can be said within regards to him. So it's interesting. Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah was born in an area in Morocco called Risni over there, and he was Nikra al Shem Hari over there. Very, very interesting. Who hit Korel Pa'al Be'ir Holdatok, actually live in and get raised inside the city where he was born. Sheba lamad et Torat anigla b'nistar b'yeshivat aviv v'im chachmei mishpachto. So he would, within regards to the great rabbis actually from his family, and something very, very much interesting to point out. But what's interesting, we're going to say a word within regards to his father, the Abir Yaakov. His father was also known as. His father was born in the year 1806 in Tafilalat and passed away in 1880, I think in Damanhur in Egypt. He was about 74 years of age. He was a leading Moroccon Rabbi of his generation, we have to point out over here. Very, very great Rabbi, and so much can be pointed out within regards to him. It's I think it's interesting. I think it was in 1879 he famously left Morocco and embarked on a pilgrimage to Holy Land via Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. And it's actually, I think it was at that stage in time when he actually came into Damanhur. He sadly passed away, became ill at that stage in time, and he was actually buried in Damanhur. And his tomb is a pilgrimage onto this day. And he's grandfather of Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, the Baba Sali, and there's many, many stories within regards to the famous Abi Yaakov. I would recommend everyone to watch over that video we recorded about the Abi Yaakov during his Hilula. I think it was in the month of Tevet. So I very, very strongly recommend people to learn more within regards to that. Anyone tuning in live, we're exploring a few of the highlights of the great rabbi's life. Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, who was very much a great rabbi in the vicinities in Morocco, you could say one of the most famous rabbis of his day and age. And I would recommend everyone, if you're new over here, you're new to our community, welcome, and please learn more and watch over all the previous videos that we are recording about over here inside this series. Okay, so let's continue over here as we are speaking about the great Chacham. I think it's interesting, he was among the great Torah learners inside the yeshiva, including Rav David Abuchatzerah and the Baba Sali, if I'm not mistaken. Rav David Abuchatzerah was another great rabbi. Unfortunately, he was murdered. Hashem Yikam Damo. I think it was actually Rav David Abuchatzerah was a very, very great rabbi. That was in the year 1919. Yud Dalet Kislev was his Hilula, and he was one of the great rabbis, leading rabbis in Tiflalat in Morocco of his time, and was author of various great books, which we have to point out, including the Petach HaOhel. There was various different volumes, the Reish Shabbos Sefer, Sechel Tov, for example, and the books and songs he composed, and absolutely incredible. So much can be said within regards to that. Okay, so let's continue. לאחר מספר שנות לימוד בישיבה, החל להסתגר בחדרו וללמוד בפרשות. כבר בגיל 16, he was 16 years old, כתב הקדמה לספרי אביו, he wrote an introduction to the book of his father, ובגיל 23 ילמד תלמידים ולכתוב את ספרו. When he was 23 years of age, he would actually start writing at that point in time and educate children. אף על פי שלא נשא בתפקיד רשמי בישיבה, היה לו מעמד חשוב בקרב יהודי תפילת, והוא נשלח מספר פעמים לגייס כספים עבור הישיבה. He would, I think, go on undertakings, if I'm not mistaken, to actually travel to raise funds for the yeshiva in of itself. So he would take on, remember, those, he didn't necessarily have an official position, I think, of the yeshiva, but had an important position where he would raise funds and among various different Jews. Remember, Shluchei de Rabbanan was a very key position for many Rabbanim of different years of time, where they would take on various different travelings. It's something that we have to point out, and go to different places also. And it was seen as a very responsible position, but at the same time, very, very important one also. So that's something that we very much have to stress out over here. Anyone tuning in live at the moment, welcome to the channel, as it's the Hilula here on the 14th of, happens to be the 14th of Shvat, of the famous Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah Harishon. So very, very interesting enough. And we're actually going to explore a little bit within regards to his Torah colossal book, which he actually had, of the Toldot Yitzchak in due course over here. So that's something that I have to point out over here. So that's very, very interesting over here. And I think we did record at one stage in time, if I'm not mistaken, an information book video within regards to the history of the Abuchatzerah rabbinic dynasty. That's something I very much have to point out over here, and I recommend everyone to look into that and to learn more within regards to that. Okay, so let's continue speaking about his history in of itself. Okay. Just to add on some more information within regards to him. Okay. So, Nasal Eretz Yisrael. So, as part, at the end, he will actually return to Morocco. L'kol ha'mocha b'shnat Hitafresh Samach Gimel. Be'eretz Yisrael, nisa libitor shel Rab Moshe ben Naim. So, I believe he would get married to the daughter of another great rabbi, Rabbi Moshe ben Naim, if I'm not mistaken. So that's reported over. Who was Rav Moshe ben Naim over here? Let's explore something within. He was another very famous rabbi of his time. I think he was born in the 1845, passed away in 1920. He was a Dayan, he was a Posek, Halacha, he was an author of great Torah works. He was also a Shluchei de Rabbanan, or various different. I think he would also become the rabbi of Gibraltar at one point in time. And it was actually from Tetuan in of its own right. Much can be said. I think we did record a video about the great Chacham also over there. And he was very well traveled, I think, between Egypt, Greece, Turkey. He would be in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Algeria, in various different points of time, in Gibraltar. Yeah, I think even in Portugal, if I'm not mistaken. So he would have various different, let's say, importances. And yeah, and would have like an entire halachic path, and much can be said within regards to him. And he was an author, I think, of very similar works, if I'm not mistaken. Just to speak of people, the Shut Rachmim Pshutim, the Pete Rechem, the Kol Tachana, and Drush Eretz Yisrael. This was very, and he would have actually many great descendants also, including his grandson. For example, was even a Knesset, Abraham Kalfon, if I'm not mistaken. And there was many other rabbis, I think, from his family, if I'm not mistaken. But we're just going on a bit of a tangent over here. So, Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah will get married to the Rabbi Moshe ben Naim's daughter. And so I think it was in the winter of Hitafresh Ein Bet, Yatzal Masa, Hatrumot Nosaf Lishiva. He would once again go traveling. And I think it was on a Friday, on the 14th of Shvat. Nora Lamavet Biadei Shodedim Samuch La'ira Tola'al. So seemingly, unfortunately, he was victim of, let's say, Shodedim at that point in time. That is, when he was on a fundraising trip, unfortunately, bandits would end his life, basically. So very, very sad. He was buried at the end. I think the burial plot, Unikba Betulo Al, on that specific day, on the same day he was buried, Samuch L'Knisat Shabbat, just before, I think, the entrance of Shabbat. Kavru B'Tolal Shamo Hitev V'Hamaveh Ata Aliyah L'Regel. So I think they preserved it over there. Now he wrote various different great Torah books, including among them the Toldot Yitzchak HaKolel et HaSfrim Habaim. So it's very interesting. We can actually see at the moment as we are speaking, just looking at a preface within regards to this great Torah book over here. That's something I very much have to point out, and you can actually see a lot of pictures on the internet. I couldn't actually find a actual picture of the great Chacham itself. Remember, there will be another great Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, who maybe we'll speak about in a minute, that was also connected to him. That's something that I will have to point out over here. But he was author of great Torah colossal work. So that's something very, very important, just to stress out over here. Anyone tuning in live at the moment, welcome to our community as we're exploring the life of a really great rabbi. There was from Morocco in his day, a rabbi that we spoken about here on various occasions before inside the series, Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah Harishon, a very, very famous rabbi at the moment. So let's explore a few more of his great Torah books. He would have let's say, great books in of itself over there. So let's explore some of them. As I'm just fixing the preface so that everyone can see on the thumbnail of the picture, a picture of the Toldot Yitzchak book, so that everyone can see, because I think it's important. Just a picture while we're reading, if anyone is live, what the actual sefer actually looked like in of itself. So I think it's very, very important. I'm just looking, we're going to say over some stories also with regards to the great Chacham in due course. So he would write at that stage in time. The Toldot Yitzchak will include various different other books, including Elef HaMagen. This was Chidushim on the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. This was according to order of Aleph Bet. Then there was Lev Tahor, which was various different drashot. Then there was Shabbat HaGadol. Shabbat HaGadol, obviously we know that we celebrate the Shabbat HaGadol towards the time period of Pesach. Mar Eketzat Al Kol Tariag Mitzvot U'Mitzvah D'Rabbanan Ramazot B'Milah Shabbat. How they got these different words from the 613 mitzvot will actually resemble and have a hint towards the day of the Sabbath. Then there was a Sha'arei Binah. Al Pasuk Harishon b'Megillat Shir Hashirim, Perek Eshet Chayil. Eshet Chayil comes from the book of Proverbs, from Mishlei, and the Shir Hashirim is Songs of Songs. The Sharbit Zahav Al Hashas, and I don't know if it was printed in his lifetime or not. Zilchei Tzedek. This was a book on the halachot on Shechita and Trifot. And the Keter Torah, which was drashot in of itself, he would actually compose various different songs also. Rabbi Yitzchak Katab Piyutim Rabim HaMefursam Shebehem Hu Ufa Shchona, one of the famous songs over there, which many people will sing. Hanachshab le'echad hashirim mukarim yotzeh b'tarbut Yehudit Morocco. Piyut nosaf hamushar b'fi Yehudit Morocco hu Yonati Tamati Yekara Mipninim. Piyotav nitvesu b'sefer Yigal Yaakov. Now, he had great family members in of itself. So Rabbi Yitzchak, so very, very interesting. As it says, Rabbi Yitzchak nasal isha et achuta shel Rabbi Yichya lechini, Aziza lechini. Mimena nolda lo ben ushtei banot. So I think he was married at different stages to two different women, seemingly over there. So I think Rabbi Abba nisal lebitosh Rabbi David Abuchatzerah. Beno haya Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, Rav Shchunat Kiryat Eliezer b'Haifa. Ben nosaf haya Rav David. Then another one, Rachel, Rabbanit Rachel, Eshet Rabbi Moshe Fedidia. Once again from great family. And Rabbanit Chana was a wife of Rab Masud Nezri, if I'm not mistaken. Benam Harav Yitzchak Nezri kihen ka Rab in. It says over here, Orleansville, I'm not too sure where. I think somewhere in Algeria, if I'm not mistaken. So Rabbi Mordechai Nizri, the name sounds very familiar here from this series. I believe we have spoken about him on various occasions also here on this series. So very, very interesting. So you can see very, very decorated family in of itself, and a very important family that they happen to have been. Who was his Talmidim, including Rabbi David Abuchatzerah, we spoke about at the beginning. Rabbi Yisrael Abuchatzerah, the famous Baba Sali, who would go on to become also head of Jewish court in Tefilalat. He was Rosh Yeshiva, he was Kabbalist, Moroccan Israeli, and it was known among the Sibor with regards to the congregation with regards to the great miracles he did. And many people come to him for advice and blessings, and was very known as a Baba Sali, as we've spoken about before. Another one, Rav Moshe Torgerman was one of his Talmidim. Who was Rav Moshe Torgerman? He was one of the great rabbis from the Yeshivat Abir Yaakov. He was a Posek Halacha, he was a Dayan, he was Rosh Yeshiva in Tfilat, and he was, Rav Moshe Torgerman actually happens to have been the rabbi of the Baba Sali, and has many, many great descendants, and also had many great Talmidim who we've spoken about before, including Rab Masoud HaKohen, who was a rabbi of Tumushenet in Algeria, if I'm not mistaken, and also a Rosh Yeshiva and author of the Pirchei Kahuna, which is very, very interesting enough. So another one of his Talmidim was Rab Machluf Abuchatzerah, another great rabbi of his time, who was head of Jewish court. He was a Dayan. In Marrakesh, in Morocco, much can be said within regards to him. You can see just Abuchatzerah family in itself, how great they were. He was actually born in the year 1894, passed away in 1980. It was his Hilula just a few days ago, Rav Machluf's, on the 8th of Shvat, if I'm not mistaken. He authored various different great books, Yafeh Sha'ah, Ma'ayin Yavo, the Kehillat Yaakov, the Michlei Yofi, if I'm not mistaken. He was a Talmid of Rabbi Yechia Adahan, and was at a generation where there were many, many great rabbis. That's something that we very much have to point out, and was author of different great books. That's another great rabbi that was his student. Harab Eliyahu Abuchatzerah, who would he be? He would go on to become a Dayan. He would be a Moreh Tzedek in Arfot, if I'm not mistaken. And the famous Rabbi Shlomo Amsalem will become the rabbi of an area called Medlat. This was another very, very famous rabbi that we have to point out over here inside this series. So that's, we're exploring some of the things. Shlomo Amsalem, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was born in 1880. He passed away in 1963. His Hilula will be just in over a month's time on the 25th of Iyar. And he was actually the son, Rav Shlomo was, of Rav Moshe Amsalem, if I'm not mistaken, and would actually learn under auspices, I think, of Rav Avram Atiyah, really the great rabbis over there. And he was actually quite close to Rav Masoud Abuchatzerah also, if I'm not mistaken. And he was an author of great Chidushei Torah also, that many would come out, many of the books and writings after he passed away, including Bnei Shlomo, which is Chidushim on the Torah and on the Nevi'im, respectively, and Chidushei Tehillim. That's something else that we have to point out. We're going to explore a few more highlights within regards to his history, a segula over there, within regards to his specific date of his passing, of the great Rabbi Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah. So we're going to take a short 1 minute break, and please watch your space. We'll be back in 1 minute, friends. Thanks everyone for being patient over here. Now, thanks. We took a break, but now what's interesting is there's a famous segula within regards to the Arak of Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah here on this day of the 14th of Shvat. So I'm just reading this now from the meshiv.co.il website, where it's a question and answers forum over here, where they ask a great Rabbi Eliyahu Buchbot, a shaila over here, a very, very great shaila, a great rabbi. So he actually says that the question was posed, what are the details of Segula of the Arak of Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, Zechet Tzadik Libracha? So he'll give the answer. There are two segulot, virtues, associated with the 14th day of Shvat, which is a Yom Hilula. It's a Yom Hilula today, where we're recording, thank God, we're recording the video about him, but the great Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, Zechet Tzadik Libracha. Obviously, as he stresses in this Teshuvah, the author of the Ahuva Eshkona. He was, once again, he quotes, he's the youngest son of the Abi Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov Abuchatzerah. So the first one, and I think in the book, there's a book called Ma'aseh Nisim. He brings the Segula in a different way. This is his answer. On the day of the Hilula, the 14th of Shvat, fill a bottle with water from the tap, and to mention the name of the righteous Rabbi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Yaakov Abuchatzerah, Zechet Tzadik Libracha, when filling the water, and to drink from this water for a few days, and Be'ezrat Hashem, he will see salvation. And it's explained there that although the segula is useful for everything, anyway is most useful for a housing crisis, paying debts on an apartment, or finding an apartment to buy over there. And there's another segula, they say, it was mentioned, I think, in a kuntras. So I'm just quoting what this website says. And Yitzchak went out for a walk in the field, and it is as follows. On the 14th day of Shvat, buy an arak and say with his mouth that he will have salvation in the matter he needs. He will specify over here. That's what's actually say. And yeah, we are just. I'm just going to get back to, because I'm just reading this here from. He will specify on a specific matter without vowing. I think for the next year on this date, he will distribute the arak to the people for the uplifting of his soul. The tzaddik Rabbi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Yaakov ben Abuchatzerah. And he actually adds over here, some people add as a good advice, let's just say in brackets over here, and not as part of the segula, to write on a sticker on the arak intended for the above matter, for the sake of certain salvation. Of course, care must be taken to distribute only to the people who bless the apostate and drink l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, so that this will really benefit the accession of his pure soul. And he adds here in this article, of course, together with segula, it's proper for a person to fumble with his actions and to pray to God for the salvation he needs, and not to rely on the virtue alone. And it is appropriate to mention in this what Baal Hilula, the holy Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah Tzadik Libracha, wrote in his book called the Lev Tahor. The person who prays needs to think of himself as a poor man knocking on the door, and since he thinks of himself as poor, then God is not weary in his prayer and his request. And this is interpretation of what is written in the Tehillim. Pray for the poor because he will be rapt. Then it will be appropriate that he pour out his prayer before God, and his prayer will be accepted. And so far, his words, and it's explained in the Zohar, this says in parentheses, and there's no room to extend it. That is, a person should pray with the feeling that I don't deserve anything. And this is a wonderful segula for receiving prayers, Be'ezrat Hashem. And he actually says at the end of the response, in the end of the Shala, and may the prayers be accepted, and may all the wishes be fulfilled. L'tova v'lebracha, amen. That's what he actually says. So this was actually coming from an article in the meshiv.co.il website from Rabbi Eliyahu Buchbot with regards to segula of the Arak of the famous Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah. Very interesting enough, and many other great rabbis from the Abuchatzerah family, which we have to point out over there. His grandfather, I think, from the side of his father, was Rab Masud Abuchatzerah, and he would have, as I said before, brothers, Rab Avram, Rab Aaron, Rab Masud, if I'm not mistaken. His son, as we mentioned before, was Rab Abba Abuchatzerah, and he was the author of many great books, and the Piyutim, and so on and so forth, and how important it is to actually explore within regards to him. I think we did record a video, if I'm not mistaken, of the famous Rabbi Abba Abuchatzerah, that's something I have to point out. I would recommend everyone to watch that specific video that we recorded within regards to him. I think it was, I think maybe also about approximately a year ago, we did record a presentation within regards to the great rabbi. So that I would recommend everyone to look at also and to watch. And how important actually it will be. So we did record a video on the famous Abuchatzerah family. That's something that many generations we've got. I think there's a family tree actually available on the internet. There's great rabbis with the Abuchatzerah family name here in modern day, we have to point out. And we can see how everyone evolved at different points of time. So it's interesting. Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, interesting enough, would... there'll be another Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, I think connected to Rabbi Masud Abuchatzerah, his brother. So his nephew that will make it, if I'm not mistaken, would also be a Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah. So we can't get confused with regards to that. And his nephew, I think, lived between 1895 to 1970. So hence he was also known as a Baba Chaki, if I'm not mistaken. We did record a video with that in regards to him, so it is quite confusing. His Hilula is on the 25th of Adar Bet, and he passed away in 1970, nearly about 56 years ago. Who was Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah, his nephew? He was a chief rabbi of the cities of Ramleh and Lod, and the author of he was an author and a Moatzot Rabbanot Reshit Israel. He was a great rabbi in Morocco, if I'm not mistaken. He would take on various importances over there at that point in time. Obviously, in Tefilalat, in those places, I think he would actually be a rabbi in Arpod at one point in time, in Oran in Algeria, if I'm not mistaken, and will return, I think, to Tefilalat in Israel. He would actually make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael with his family, and if I'm not mistaken, he will take on various different. I think he was quite close to the famous Rishon LeZion Rabbi Ben Zion Chai Uziel over there when he came to Israel. There was other great rabbis. Shemish Rabbi Ramleh Letzad. He actually would work alongside Rabbi Yisrael Glezer, who was an Ashkenazic rabbi of the city of Ramleh, if I'm not mistaken, and he would become the rabbi of the city of Lod, along with Rabbi Pontar, who was another great rabbi. I think he was also known as Rav Alta, and he was, I think, actually a Romanian rabbi, if I'm not mistaken, and German at various points in time, and was part of the Moatzot Rabbanot Yisrael. And I think he would be part of the Irgun Rabbanim Hasfardim and the Eidut Mizrach in Eretz Yisrael, and would which was founded, I think, by the famous Rishon LeZion of Israel, Rabbi Yitzchak Nisim. In 1959, he was appointed part of the Vada Hakrit Amarchtit Lachaka Iru Vadi Salif, if I'm not mistaken. Very interesting enough. And there was great rabbis over there. And I think he himself passed away on the 25th of Adar in 1970. And I think it could have been that he died. It says over here, Naharag hababa haki be'tunat drachim be'tzomtot kivati shebadarom. So very sadly, I think he would pass away, I think in a car accident, if I'm not mistaken. So very sad. I think it was in that specific junction over there where that happened. So very sadly. And I think he was actually at the time going to do a huge mitzvah of making shalom bayit with a specific couple that had issues. He was traveling over there, and it's reported over that more than about 20,000 people attended his funeral, if I'm not mistaken. And I think even the president of Israel would actually come, Zalman Shazar, if I'm not mistaken. And many of the great rabbis will actually come, including Rabbi Yitzchak Nisim, Rabbi Issa Yehuda Unterman, and the famous Rav Shlomo Goran, if I'm not mistaken. And I think after his passing, it was actually interesting. Rabbi Abraham Abuchatzerah, also known as the Baba Hana, would actually take his place, if I'm not mistaken. He was a great rabbi of Yavne, of Ramleh also. And very interesting. So you can see, and I think afterwards, Rabbi Yichel Abuchatzerah will get a position inside the city. Rabbi Yichel, I think, is, if I'm not mistaken, he was born in 1944, so Shlita. So he's currently, Rabbi Yichel Shlita is about 82 years of age, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's the Sephardi rabbi of the city of Ramleh, and has taken on various different important positions. That's something that we very much have to point out over here. So friends, everyone, I hope this was informative. It is Hilula today. Don't forget to light candles in his memory over here. Now friends, we are a community. We're exploring the history with regards to great Rabbi Yitzchak Abuchatzerah Harishon. It's today his Hilula, the 14th of Shvat. It's a very important day of Segulot. And He's a rabbi that we've spoken about on various occasions before. If any of you descend from the great Chacham, please, I would love to hear more information. And within regards to him, it's all over the news. There's different commemorations here on this specific day within regards to Segulot. There's events going on in different places, dinners, Su'udot on this specific day. And it's, let's just say, seen as a very, very auspicious time. And I'm just reading at the moment from the Chadrei Chadarim website an interesting article within regards to him also. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to wish you a meaningful day. Take care and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.